I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Could I please get a motion to approve the agenda with the following addition to the consent agenda? Number 7.9, scheduled closed session for the City Council on Monday, May 15th, 2017 at 6 p.m. to discuss strategy for labor negotiations.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are resident comments and questions. Any questions, comments from residents? Hello, Mr. Finkel, sir. Very influential person within the county of Carver, because technically not the city, but Dahlgren Township. Let us move on to Carver County Community Development Agency. Allison, sorry.
Welcome, Allison.
Welcome. I was going to try to pronounce your last name.
Strike.
Strike. Thank you.
Don't worry, not very many people get it right. Mayor and council members, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Now I'm going to screw it up. There we go. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Allison Strike. I'm the Deputy Director with Carver County Community Development Agency. And I'm just here to do a presentation on the CDA and our programs in different properties. The mission of Carver County Community Development Agency is to provide affordable housing and foster economic and community development within the cities of Carver County. And for the sake of time, I'm only going to touch on a few of our properties. So as you are all probably aware, we have Bluff Creek Apartments in Carver, which is 18 units. Within that building, we have 4 public housing units, and then we also have 3 project-based Section 8 voucher units, and one of those units is designated for homeless. So for our project-based voucher units, Metro HRA attaches a voucher to the unit, and residents pay 30% of their adjusted monthly income towards rent.
So that's the 30 AMI, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So the CDA owns and manages 183 senior properties or units, and those are for 55 and better. 228 multifamily units, and those are general occupancy, and 199 subsidized units. And the 199 units is 81 units of our public housing. We have 114 unit project-based Section 8 building for 62 and older or disabled in Chaska. And then we have 4 transitional housing units in Chaska as well. And transitional housing is designed for households that are experiencing homelessness. And again, for all of the subsidized units, tenants pay 30% of their adjusted monthly income, and the rest is subsidized.
So all of that transitional is in Chaska?
Yes, all 4 units are in Chaska, 2 duplexes. And then within our 610 units, we have 11 units that are project-based vouchers that are designated for homelessness. We have a total of 24 project-based vouchers with Metro HRA, and 11 of those are designated for homelessness. 3 units are designated for homeless vets, and those are located in Chaska. And then 3 units...
Is that above Subway, above your offices?
No, it's at Lake Grace.
Okay, thank you.
3 units are in partnership with District 112, and those are our newest units. So last year, we purchased 3 townhouses in the Clover Ridge area in Chaska, and we applied for project-based vouchers for Metro HRA, and we signed a memorandum of understanding with the school district that we would fill those units with homeless families within the school district first, before we would take referrals from either coordinated entry or from our agency.
And are those filled within District 112?
Well, 2 of them, the current residents haven't moved out, so we're working with the school district to fill those units when the current residents move out in June. And we have taken 1 referral for them for a unit that's is occupied right now.
Cool.
And we're currently working on replicating this with District 110.
What's District 110?
Waconia.
Thank you.
Yep. There's a picture of the Clover Ridge Drive units in Chaska.
don't have to skip them all.
Okay.
Well,
if
I mean,
we've
you
got-
can, but I mean, we don't want,
Well,
I don't want to
for
put you on
sake
the
of
spot
time, so
here.
this is Brickyard Apartments in Chaska.
We care.
Okay, that's 32 units, and we have 6 project-based voucher units in that property, and that is the building that has our offices and subway as well.
Great building.
Centennial Hill in Chanhassen is 65 units for 55 and better, and we have 3 project-based voucher units there with 1 designated for homeless. Crossings at Town Center is in Waconia, that's 68 units, and we have 2 project-based vouchers there with 1 designated for homeless. Lake Grace in Chaska is 91 units. We have 3 project-based vouchers designated for homeless vets, and then we have 5 Section 811 units, and those are project-based rental assistance units through Minnesota Housing, and they're for low-income people with disabilities between the age of 18 and 61.
Did you build those or purchase those? Do you know?
Grace, we bought the A, B, and the C building, and then we built the D building, which is the townhouses.
Thank you. See how I'm kind of guiding, leading there?
Oak Grove Senior Residence is our newest building out in Norwood, Young America, and that's 50 units, also for 55 and better. And we have 2 project-based voucher units with 1 designated for homeless. Our public housing, so we have 31 units located at Spruce Apartments in Waconia, and the other 50 units are scattered throughout Carver County. They're single-family homes and townhouses. Residents pay 30% of their adjusted monthly income towards rent, and the rest is subsidized.
Is that, just out of curiosity, is that W-2? Do you get involved with looking at W-2s and this is what you owe? Is that how you set rents?
How we set rents?
Yeah, 30% of adjusted income for the month.
Oh, in public housing, yeah, we have a compliance manager who
Okay.
determines what everybody pays for rent.
Okay.
So transitional housing, again, 4 units or they're for households experiencing homelessness. The lease is up to 24 months, and residents are required to take case management either with an agency of their choice or with one of our housing counselors. Waybury Apartments in Chaska is 114 units, 62 and older or disabled, and tenants pay 30% of their adjusted monthly income. Windstone in Chaska is 92 units, with 4 units of public housing and 3 project-based voucher units with 1 designated for homeless. Carver County Land Trust, we have 28 homes located throughout Carver County. We currently have homes in Chaska, Victoria, and Waconia, and these homes remain permanently affordable through a 99-year renewable ground lease. We administer the Land Trust program, and CLT is a form of home ownership which provides permanently affordable home ownership opportunities. So the Land Trust owns the land. We take that out of the purchase price of the house to make it more affordable. And that's for households at or below 80% of area median income. So all of our properties either have an income restriction or a rent restriction. What we refer to as our special programs, so we administer a number of tenant-based rental assistance programs at the CDA. Bridges is a Minnesota housing-funded program, and it provides a housing subsidy for persons with a serious mental illness. And we partner, we have an MOU with First Street Center to administer that program. They provide the supportive services. Bridges ELIF is also for persons with serious mental illness, and it has an added component that it's for households who are experiencing long-term homelessness. Bridges RTC is also for persons with serious mental illness with an added component that a household is exiting a regional treatment center. Shelter Plus Care is a federally funded program through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and that is for persons that are homeless and disabled. And we also partner with First Street Center on that program. They provide the supportive services. Housing Trust Fund is a Minnesota housing program, and it's designed to address homelessness, which is our first priority for preference in households with a disability. And then our newest program, which is a pilot program, is HTF Reentry, and that is through Minnesota Housing, and it's meant to address those coming out of prison who will be homeless upon exit. The Community Growth Partnership Initiative was created and funded by the CDA in 2016. The goal of the program is to increase the tax base and improve the quality of life in Carver County through three specific strategies: affordable housing development, job creation, and redevelopment. In 2016, we repurposed our business loan fund into the Community Growth Initiative. Cities can apply for grants directly from the CDA. And to date, we've awarded 2 planning grants, one to the City of Watertown and one to the City of Carver, and 3 redevelopment grants, 2 to Chanhassen and 1 to Victoria. The CDA is also a HUD-certified housing counseling agency. We offer home buyer education services, mortgage delinquency counseling, or what we refer to as foreclosure prevention, home maintenance inquiries, and rental assistance counseling. So housing counseling is a federally funded program which provides all of these services, including financial management, property maintenance, home ownership and tenancy, fair housing laws and requirements, and we also offer a home stretch class about 6 or 7 times a year for households that are looking at buying a home. And then if they are interested in potentially qualifying through like down payment assistance through Minnesota Housing, that class is a requirement. Coordinated entry, my favorite topic to explain to people. So the Department of Housing and Urban Development coordinated entry is a mandate by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And it's meant to basically streamline services for families and households experiencing homelessness so that they don't just get shuffled around between different agencies. And so the CDA is a point of entry for the coordinated entry system in Carver County for single adults and families. So if a household presents as homeless, they can come to the CDA and we will do an intake on them to get them on what's referred to as the coordinated entry priority list. And once they're on that priority list, they can get referred to a multitude of different programs within the county that serve people who are experiencing homelessness. So all of our special programs that I referenced on the previous slide, all those programs are required to take referrals from coordinated entry. And recently, we just started this month, we were pretty excited. We got approval from HUD to be able to use some of our HUD housing counseling dollars to pay for background checks when households present as homeless at the agency, because often we find people aren't always aware of what's on their background, and by the time they get referred to a program, and then then the clock starts ticking on how long they have to lease up somewhere, and so by the time they apply and find out what's on their background, it's, they're running out of time. So we're trying to get that background, provide it to them, and help them address their barriers before they get referred to a program in an attempt to help address the barriers ahead of time.
So people don't know if there's things on their background?
Sometimes they don't know what's on their background, or sometimes we see people think that something's not supposed to be on their background, and maybe rightfully so, because it, just through the court process, it's supposed to not show up, and then it does, and they're surprised that it's there, or they think one thing's there and it's not.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And last is our Open to Business program, which provides one-on-one business counseling to current and prospective entrepreneurs. We have a gentleman, Lee Hall, who works out of our office 1 time a week.
What's his name again?
Lee Hall.
He's awesome.
Mm-hmm. The service is available free of charge to all county residents and any business located within Carver County. And additionally, in addition to the consulting, the program can link entrepreneurs to financing. And the program is fully paid by the CDA, so again, it is completely free. to
That's
those.
one of the most underutilized and underknown functions, and the CDA puts that together, and Lee is phenomenal. And it's any business person that is looking for any kind of business advice, or even regular financing. I'm surprised he doesn't have his own business and do it all, but he's phenomenal. That is, I mean, if you sell that, you can sell that.
Yes, well, that is one area we're looking at, trying to find new ways to get that information out, so that people in the community are aware that that service is available. And that's the end for me.
Thank you. I think we appreciate it. It's one of those things where I don't think everybody's really truly understanding of all the options that the CDA does provide. And you guys do tremendous work, and you were a phenomenal partner on some of the things that we've done. So
Thank you. I should note, actually, everything we do at the CDA is free to those receiving our services, with the exception of the home stretch class.
Thank you very much, Alice.
Thank you.
It was
Yeah,
good
thank
to,
you for
good
having
to
me.
see you.
You too.
we are now moving to Act United Human Trafficking. Jessica Bartholomew is the lead facilitator. How are you, Jess? I'm doing very well. Are you nervous?
Thank you.
Are you nervous? Okay, good.
Well, thank you for having us. I hope to introduce Act United well and myself, and if I do poorly, I have a couple of my team members here for support that'll let me know in about 12 minutes. So for the sake of time, I'm going to stick to 4 bullet points tonight. One is to introduce myself and Act United. The other is to give some information about juvenile sex trafficking and how that even pertains to Carver County and Minnesota. And then what is the work of Act United to address that issue, and why we're excited and consider this an awesome opportunity to talk to you specifically about juvenile sex trafficking here in this community. So for starters, I'm Jessica Bartholomew, and I'm the lead facilitator and founder of Act United, which is operating in Carver County. That is our focus, although our work has spread throughout Minnesota and dabbled by request in Iowa a little bit. My background bringing me to lead facilitator of this is 20 years of experience working with children, youth, teens, and families in different capacities. The latest would be as a law enforcement officer, police officer for the Minneapolis Police Department, where I did 12 years, mostly on the street and 911 calls and response patrol. And then I moved into an undercover vice unit as an undercover officer doing narcotics investigations and prostitution. My main focus in prostitution was on the streets, but also in the brick and mortar fraudulent massage businesses that pop up in many communities, including suburban and rural communities. And in the course of that investigation, I got led into discovering juvenile sex trafficking and became an investigator for those cases. In 2014, my husband and I, who is also present, a partner with Act United and still a Minneapolis police officer with the K-9 unit, made the decision for me to take an early retirement out of sex trafficking investigations and stay home. And that was in 2014. In 2015, I had a church in Chaska ask me about my career and about my final case, which involved a sex trafficking network that involved Dakota County, Carver County, and Hennepin County. And after this pastor learned that one of our victims from Carver County was just a stone throw from his church in Chaska, he asked me to speak to his congregation for 5 minutes about the presence of juvenile sex trafficking in rural Minnesota, including Carver County. And I pushed it to 6.5 minutes.
Shock.
And I'm talking so fast without a tornado warning or drill, so I'm trying to squeeze it all in my time allotted tonight, too. After speaking for 6.5 minutes, I had a group of 10 people come to me after service and say, first of all, as a parent, as a teacher, as a nurse, as a business owner in Carver County, who's also present today, Jan, who owns a business in Chanhassen, came to me and said, first of all, explain this to me. How does juvenile sex trafficking exist in Minnesota, much less Carver County? What do I need to know? And from there, what can we do to educate our community? And then the birth of Act United. And so our name says it all. ACT is an acronym for Anti-Child Trafficking, and United is how do we connect communities together for juvenile sex trafficking awareness, outreach, and prevention strategies. So that's what we do. So juvenile sex trafficking in Minnesota and in our community, I want to tell you the facts, I want to tell you the cases, which makes this issue even pertinent to where we live and where we work. The facts about Minnesota and our community is that throughout the United States, there's 300 to 350,000 children every year under the age of 18 that are sex trafficked within the United States. In Minnesota, studies show that over 200, and every time I give you a number, I want you to keep in mind, too, that this is a minimum because this is, number one, the most underreported crime in the nation. So we can only go on the numbers that have been rescued thus far and discovered. But over 200 children are sold over the internet every month in Minnesota. That number triples during major sporting events as well as certain holidays. For example, Washington County kept track of this and discovered that on St. Patrick's Day of this year and last year, that number in Minnesota tripled for the sale of children in the Twin Cities area. It tripled during the Super Bowl this year. It will not only triple in 2018, but we will also have the physical presence of it with an increase in our state. And we know that Minneapolis is booking out hotels as we speak, and it'll make it to the first, second, and third ring suburbs as far as our hospitality industry. So we will be booked out and we will see an influx of children brought to our state in February. And again, our sales of children will triple during that time. 1 in 5 youth and young adults who experience homelessness report being a victim of sex trafficking. 1 in 3 runaway children will be approached within 48 hours by a recruiter, a predator, or a sex trafficker to get into the sex slavery.
1 in 3?
1 in 3 runaways, will be approached within the first 2 days of being away from home by a recruiter. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, of the 185,000 children that were reported missing to them within a 1-year period, that were recovered, 1 in 6 were victims of sex trafficking. And how does this reach this far out in this day and age? And there's a simple answer, and it's called the internet. And we're recent into our studies now, but 20 to 50% of children that have been lured into sex trafficking and are being sold had their first contact, that first conversation and initiation over Facebook and other social media. So this is how predators from anywhere are making contact with children everywhere. So the cases that I've seen, that's kind of facts and figures in the cases that I've seen. The last case I had before retirement, like I said, was a pretty wide network that spanned that 3-county area and involved a child who was recruited out of Carver County. And she was sold for 2 weeks straight without food and was sold between traffickers and also sold to a network of businessmen in a network that doesn't use traceable means, just to make it brief. But these are people, these are men, the buyers were men that have a lot to lose. They live in our communities, they have jobs, they have positions, they're from wealthy communities and have a lot to lose. And that involved a child from us. Also, when I was a Minneapolis police officer, I had to recover a child for Chaska Police Department who was recruited into sex trafficking through a gang association, through an older boyfriend, come join the gang. And I found her twice after being taken out of a neighborhood in Chaska 2 times, found her, brought her back. And as she was beginning services, they took her again, and I found her again and brought her back. And that was a Chaska teenager. She was 14 years old. I don't know if anybody's familiar with this case, but Chaska Police Department, the liaison officer at the Chaska High School, was approached with information from other students that there was a 16-year-old high school student that they were very concerned about, and through an investigation, our Chaska PD discovered that he had met an older male friend online and developed a relationship, and we know it as the grooming process, and with a lot of promises and a lot of lies and a lot of fraud, built a relationship, and he came all the way up here from Texas. He was in his 40s to pick up this 16-year-old Chaska High School student and bring him down to Texas with him under fraudulent promises. And what was discovered in the investigation was that this man friend actually ran a pedophile ring in Texas for child pornography and child sex trafficking. So fortunately, because of the information given from other students that became concerned, that was interdicted before we lost a Chaska child. During the Ryder Cup.
Could I just, that was a young boy, not a young girl.
Correct.
So everyone is at risk.
Everyone is at risk. Yep. 10% of sex trafficking children are males. 1 in 6 men have reported having an early childhood sexually abusive or violent or sexual assault experience. And studies are very early for boys right now, but they're finding that 80% of men that are in inpatient intensive drug treatment are reporting the genesis of their addiction was an early childhood sexual assault experience. So men are, and we find this usually in family systems of trafficking. The case of this Chaska child was an internet stranger introduction relationship, but we do find it in family systems as well. And that's another reason why it's underreported. You don't tell on mom and dad, and that's your home, and there's still love there regardless of the circumstances. During the Ryder Cup, Shakopee PD kind of headed up the Operation Guardian Angel Sting, and they wanted to, a sting operation is to sell a 15-year-old. What they did was they sold a 15-year-old online to our area to see if there are any buyers, what does the market look like in our area, especially during a large event like this. Well, they ended up with their hands full and 12 arrests by the end of the day, and 2 of the buyers of this 15-year-old girl were from Carver County. So
12 in one day, and 2 were from Carver County. Because everybody usually says, well, it's the Ryder Cup, it's people coming from out of town.
all of them were in-towners. Yep, they were from Carver County, Dakota County, and other places of Minnesota.
All 12?
Mm-hmm. So when we talk about, do we have an issue? We have an issue on the buyer end, the child pornography end. Of course, we're all very concerned and waiting to hear the details on the, the principal of the Chanhassen High School. So just from experience, that is the effect of juvenile sex trafficking even in our community. And it's one of the biggest hurdles I think we have to overcome with Act United is we still have an understanding that this is an inner city issue for the most part, or involves particular places that don't involve us. However, they very much do. So what is the work of Act United to address this issue? Because we know the populations that are targeted, we're able to focus our prevention. So who's targeted? Well, youth are targeted. We're finding the homeless and runaways, people with unstable home life, or it doesn't have to be homelessness, but the instability like foster care. And when we see the vulnerabilities, hindsight's 2020, now that we know what those are, we can just go directly to addressing those vulnerabilities so they don't become targets to the predators and the traffickers. So we provide community education. We started in the fall of 2015, so we're just over a year and a half, and we have spoken at 16 different venues. We've trained pastors and youth leaders from a dozen different churches in Carver County. We've spoken at the Co-op High School in downtown, youth groups, the University of Minnesota, and we've had 2 annual conferences to address the education piece of prevention. We also facilitate community dialogues, which is a format of dialogue that can engage groups of up to 120 people, all the stakeholders in the community, and you address the issue by asking and answering the questions that matter. And it's an excellent process that would be longer than my time to explain, but it helps to see where are we at, what are our resources, what do we need, and where do we go from here? And we have absolutely positive feedback about that process. And we work to engage all sectors of community in this. We work to unite us all together to create a safety net for children. As a law enforcement officer, this is imperative, whether we're looking at the prevention, the intervention, or the aftercare or restorative care of an individual that's been involved in child pornography, sex trafficking, or abuse. The community working together and the resources that we pool become critical and imperative. So, which brings me to probably long past the end of my time, but why we believe it's important to be speaking with you specifically tonight is what we know to be true about how we prevent this from happening is when communities work together. So the two requests or asks that we would like the mayor and city council to consider is we would like you to consider partnering with us to host a community cafe dialogue for Carver County. We have done this in other counties and other communities, and the outcomes are incredible. And to consider how we can partner with you to provide trafficking awareness and internet safety curriculum for youth and training for our educational professionals into our schools. I can't tell you how many cases where a child is sold all weekend long and is dropped off at public school on Monday morning. So this is our targeted population, so let's target with prevention and with internet safety, the signs and indicators of trafficking, what their recruiting tactics look like, and we can prevent it from happening.
You had two asks. The first was partnering with a community cafe.
Yes.
What does that look like?
A community cafe dialogue is to invite all the stakeholders to the table for a conversation. Okay. Instead of a seminar where one person or speakers speak, and it's also different than a panel where it's a Q&A of only particular individuals, this engages every person in that dialogue on specific prearranged questions that will matter for the issue and will lead to the goals that can be set forth or the small steps of that particular community. Okay. So it's a chance for us to say, here's where we're at, here's where we need to go, not compare it to anybody else.
What was your second ask? I was concentrating on the community cafe.
How can we partner with you and help you help this community by providing what we do to the schools, to our teachers, to those that work in the education system, that have direct work with youth, and get this curriculum to the youth. We've done it before in smaller ways. It is important that as many youth as possible, and we make it age appropriate. We've talked to as young as 6th grade, all the way, as a police officer, my favorite was preschool, because then they tattle on their moms and dads for not wearing helmets when they bicycle. So we have done that young, of course, but age appropriate to the kids so that they know what this looks like. Right now, Minnesota is just sentenced a man out of Egan to 38 years in prison for its largest child sex trafficking case in Minnesota history, and that involved over 150 high school boys throughout Minnesota. That was sextortion, and that was fraud over the internet. We know how to tell them what to look for.
Well, in full disclosure, Jess comes into my coffee shop quite often, and we've had a number of discussions. Her husband, Brandon, is somebody else that I've had a number of these discussions with. And going through the process of talking with Jess and Brandon about some of these things, my first reaction was, yeah, this stuff happens in Minneapolis. You're a Minneapolis cop. That doesn't happen out here. And then Jess really had me when we started talking about the Shakopee sting, and that in one day, a 15-year-old online. Think about where would you look for that, first off. But in one day, 12 individuals from the Twin Cities. During the Ryder Cup, you'd think it'd people from, well, it's not us, it's the English, it's the Scottish. 12 people from Carver County and Dakota County tried to buy a 15-year-old girl online in one day. That's when we started talking, and it absolutely made sense. We'll talk about a community cafe and partnering, and we'll do that a little bit more offline, but thank you.
Yep,
Does anybody
thank
have
you.
any questions?
Thank you.
No, thank you for the information, though.
I have a question for you. So, when you watch the drama and the movies on TV, you see the van pull up, they grab a child and drive away. Do you find that that is really the low end of it, and it's mostly grooming, that the internet grooming, things like that? Or do you actually see the kind of kidnapping, taking them over state lines kind of situation also?
Yep, we do see the taking, like you would see like in the movie Taken. I thought it was fabulous. It got the conversation started, but percentage-wise, and I don't know the exact number, that is the least likely scenario. It is most likely grooming and family systems. It's the mom selling the child. The average age of entry in Minnesota is 12 years old into sex trafficking. My personal experience, the youngest I had was child pornography, was a 5-month-old infant, and up to 17. That's in a family system. That's an untouched area that I happen to know about and have survivors that I've worked with to help work that out. But it is the grooming and it is the family relationship. It's the older boyfriend, older girlfriend. And recruiting is in our schools as well through the peer recruiting. The trafficker grooms the peer, keeps the peer or their own child in school so that recruiting can happen in our schools. So the more we know, the more we see. Signs and indicators, we intervene.
Thank you.
We could probably talk for hours on this, unfortunately. But thank you for your efforts, and I will encourage more outreach and certainly more partnership, and
Yeah.
we'll talk again. Thank you
Difficult
guys very
topic,
much.
so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, and I know that this is not only part of what you've done in the past, but it's a passion of yours, and you're good at it, so thank you.
Yeah.
Well, now that I knew there's no possible way Jess could have kept it at 12 minutes, by the way. But we appreciate it. Let us now move on to, we do not have any public hearings. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Can I pull the regular meeting minutes off of the consent agenda?
Do you want to just
Which
discuss
item?
them now?
One change, yeah.
Oh, sure.
And I'm sorry.
Can you say the
that's-
item number?
Yes, I'd like to pull item 7.2, approval of the minutes from the April 17th regular meeting off.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended before we approve the agenda, and as well as without item 7.2.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Go.
Vicki, I'm sorry for not getting this to you earlier. For the regular meeting minutes, number 4, resident comments and questions, the first person was Chad Pollock, Pollock. That's it.
Is that not in there?
Was it just misspelled? What?
It was off by a little bit. It says Jeff Pollock.
Okay, so we're just replacing Jeff Hollick
Chad Pollock.
with Chad Pollock.
That would explain why I couldn't verify that name.
I like explanations.
Now you have to make a motion to approve those minutes
Okay.
as amended.
So I make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 17th, 2017 regular meeting as amended.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. So, moving on, no unfinished business. Chief Meyer, you have Callie to thank. Callie did a spectacular job presenting a chief's vehicle, command vehicle, not just a chief's vehicle. So come on up, Chief. You get that to follow.
Yeah, I brought him here in case you wanted to talk some more. I heard he did so well, so I almost decided just to send him down here by himself again.
It's a good move.
No, I really have some pretty good staff at the fire department. Callie's really stepped up this year, so it's appreciative. And so Yeah, so the command vehicle, we got pricing from the Wolf Motors in Jordan. So the price on that kind of varies once we meet with the electrician on that, as far as doing the wiring and all that stuff. So the price may vary a little bit for what they need to do for the vehicle or whatever, but for the most part, all that's there. So is there any questions as far as the presentation that Callie didn't answer? 'Cause I know it's in the packet here.
No, he was pretty thorough.
He was pretty thorough.
Very thorough.
And I love that under patient care, Callie chose to use an infant. Because he's tugging at our heartstrings saying, you really need this truck to save children's lives. Yeah,
only
if there was a
missing a
puppy,
puppy.
if there was a puppy, no go. I'd entertain a motion, because actually Callie was cool with the lesser expensive one, not to exceed.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of a 2017 Ford Explorer Interceptor with lighting package, lettering, and miscellaneous equipment needed for the command vehicle response at a total cost not to exceed $45,000.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Well done, Callie. And Dan.
Thank
There's a
you.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Congrats, Chief.
Thank you.
And for the record, we've all seen how traffic can be on Jonathan Carver Parkway. And if you really do need to get there and there's no way to stop traffic and get through, that can add 5 to 6 minutes to response time easily. And I think even Minneapolis police would appreciate the value of 5 to 6 minutes additional to save lives, Brandon, save lives. Taz would appreciate that. You guys really don't have to stay. We appreciate everything, and we'll get back to you, because we have other stuff to talk about. Thank you, guys. See, they don't stay, and they just got 45 grand. What's that? We're going for a ride. Thank you, guys. Let's move on to 920 redevelopment project. Ms. Nash, 9.2.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening is, you'll hear a presentation from Shingaby Builders, who I'll introduce in a minute, for their proposal for the redevelopment of 926th Street. For a little bit of history on the project, the city acquired the site in December of 2015. In the spring of 2016, the Planning Commission, at your direction, worked on redevelopment guidelines that they'd like to see in an RFP, and you then authorized an RFP to go out. Nobody responded to the first RFP that the city sent out last fall, but we did get 2 proposals from the RFP that was due at the end of January of this year. Those proposals were the one from Shingaby, which you'll hear in a minute, and one from CCR Homes for 12 twin home units. The Planning Commission heard both proposals. They evaluated the merits of both of them and recommended to the City Council that you pursue the Shingaby proposal unanimously on a 5-0 vote. They primarily felt that the Shingaby proposal better addressed what they were looking for in the RFP, and with that, I'll turn it over to John Fanning with Shingaby Builders, and he can share with you what they're hoping to do for the site.
So and I apologize, John, where did the Planning Commission leave this?
They left it with recommending to the City Council.
Did they vote on it?
They voted on it, 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, John.
Absolutely. Again, my name is John Fanning. I'm Vice President of Real Estate Development for Shingaby. We're a general contractor and real estate developer based in Loretto. Been around since the 1980. As far as our proposal related to the project, just to kind of give you a quick overview, obviously talk about the introductions, a little bit about the project vision, the redevelopment concept, the demographic and market analysis, and then question and answer. A lot of what you'll find out is spelled out in the proposal, which I think you've all received. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. So I'm just going to give a quick overview, but leave some time for question and answers. So again, as far as myself and Shingaby, we're a 40-year general contractor and developer. Get involved in a lot of different types of projects, but recently we've seen, I think as most people, a big influx in the senior housing side. The group that we're participating with, and the gentleman, his name is Tom Opatz. Unfortunately, Tom couldn't be here tonight. Tom actually has a company called Hilltop Healthcare, which is a operator. Tom actually comes and has partnered with us on a series of different projects. Prior to him starting his own company and then being a licensed operator, he worked for Ecumen, which is a very large senior housing developer in the Twin Cities area and really the upper Midwest. Question always asked is why the Shingabee? I think for us is because we're a developer general contractor, we take a little different approach, but then also serving as the owner, we come in and really partner with an operationals group. But we really look at is how did we develop something, a product that is not just short-term, just building it, but it's long-lasting and really blends in with the community. I think for us is we definitely have a small community approach on what we do. Part of it is I mean, we're based in Loretto. It's a very small community, and I would say probably 90% of the development that we do in the upper Midwest is in small communities. We just like doing it. We like working and having that hands-on with those groups. So this really fits kind of our mantra on how we approach development. As far as Carver, what really interested in this? Unfortunately, we never saw the first RFP. For whatever reason. We were actually introduced by a engineering group that we do work with when it came out the second time. And so that's, we looked into it and said, hey, you know what, there's an opportunity here. And I think part of it is talking with Tom is that as we started to look around is where were there opportunities to do more development, but in the senior housing side, and Tom's experience, he did some preliminary market research and saw that there's a big demand in this area. And so that's what really created our interest in the opportunity. But also we looked at it is that it creates an opportunity to work with the community, not only provide the product, but really give the ability to increase some different housing choices in those areas. So that was really why we saw the opportunity with this project. As it relates to the developer and our approach, as you'll see, and I think as you saw in the proposal, is it's really an integrated and a very transparent process. We look at ourselves as kind of the hub, but really bringing in those different groups. I mean, not only working hand in hand with the community, but really working hand in hand with the design team and the consultants to making sure that the product that we're delivering at the end of the day is viable and usable, both short-term and long-term. Some of the key factors is really the customer experience, the enhancement of the residential, the integration of the team approach, and really the tie-in with the community. The concept that we had ourselves, one of the things that was kind of unique, and when we were putting together our proposal, Minnesota Housing put out a report that was based on 2011 and really started to break it down by age. And I think as everybody sees, obviously with the baby boomers, we're just on the cusp of where we're seeing senior housing going from a growth standpoint. I mean, there's going to be a large demand for it coming. So I think this opportunity really starts to put us on the front side of that and really capture those opportunities. The concept itself, you know, there's some different ideas as it comes to senior housing. There's a description that's always been described as age in place, which now covers independent living, assisted living, memory care, and then those enhanced care suites, or sometimes what we call skilled care. We approach it a little differently, and an idea that we really started doing some research. It's really living in place because we want these communities active and the facilities active. And working with Tom's group in Hilltop Healthcare, that's been their approach as well with the facilities that they've done, which really transformed from his experience from Ecumen.
So just so that I understand, the partnership is with you and Tom Opatz is that you guys build it, he runs it. I mean,
correct.
For lack of a better term.
That's exactly it. Yep, we're the developer, the general contractor, and the finance group.
And you own it.
Correct. And then
he leases it from. What's that squeaking? Honestly,
it might be my chair. As I.
Oh.
Yep. It is.
Not me.
All right. Sorry. Is it you? Okay.
No, it's me.
No, I didn't know. I just wanted to be sure we weren't.
So we become the owner, developer, and then either whatever our agreement is he operates it on either our behalf or sometimes what happens is you do find groups that want to come in as individual investor groups,
sure.
Either private individuals that ultimately want to own the building. But our initial take is we're the ones that are going to develop it and own it initially.
Okay.
And then he'll be the operator group.
Cool.
So really our focus is, again, the living in place strategy. So it's more of a vibrant, really tying some of the new trends because obviously the senior housing is continually changing and improving. Really the key factor too is the design of the overall project is to tie in with the community. The location is very unique. You look at that and go by and say, how did that bus barn ever get there with what happened around there in the maintenance facility? But when we start to see is our approach is going to be is focusing on how do we blend in with that area, not only the topography, but the surrounding homes and those type of things, and not make it stand out, but really tie in collectively with that. So here's some just pictures of projects that we've been involved with or that we saw are just kind of good representation of the type of project that we envision this to be. Again, we haven't started any of the design, and that will be a very collaborative process as we move through at the point that this is chosen and we're chosen to move forward on it. But as you can see, I mean, it's a little bit more of a residential style product, definitely not a commercial style product, but really starting to blend in with a lot of different opportunities as it relates to the different delivery methods or the product being independent living, assisted living, memory care, and then the skilled nursing. As far as the process itself, there's some different things that we have to go through, one, to really determine the viability of this. The first one we're going to do is a market study. I mean, the initial research on it tells us that there's a market opportunity for somewhere between 40 and 60 units. It could be greater than that. And so that's the first thing we will do is do a full-blown market study and feasibility. Then what we'll do is start digging into a little bit of the due diligence on the property, working with the city and the staff to come up with something that makes sense. Obviously, there's some work that has to be done on the property as it relates to entitlements, some zoning, those type of things. And then we'll start to dive into the construction services. Again, there's some different steps, but that kind of gives you a broad range of the process that we'll go through. In the proposal, we put together a rough schedule as part of the RFP. Again, that's shifted a little bit because this has taken a little bit more time, which is fine. But I think
if you would have seen it in the beginning.
I know, we would have been fine. So, but it does kind of give an idea of roughly what we're looking at time frame. I mean, if we can get in the ground by the fall, that would be fantastic. But we also want to be realistic and not rush through anything too. So, again, market analysis, the programming, and then identifying the funding sources, and then ultimately that property acquisition for us to start construction. So with that said, I'd love to answer any questions that you may have or thoughts and ideas.
Well, I think it's interesting. We did a independent market study of our own about 8 or 9 years ago. Actually, I did it. I asked Moravian Homes, and they said essentially there isn't a need for a single senior residence within the city of Carver based upon the vacancies in Chaska. And in that meantime, those vacancies have filled up. They built like 3 or 4 more, and now we have 600 homes coming to Carver, and the need is definitely here. I just want to say welcome.
Thank you.
That we are looking, I can only speak for myself. I'm looking to partner with you guys, so I think it's great. The only question I have is when you talk about an ownership process, everything that I'm seeing in here is that you guys build it and you immediately kind of either sell it off or let someone else run it and consider it as the owner. Throughout that process, I just want to be able to meet the people that will be there long term, and that. Other than that, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Yeah, and to answer that question a little bit, I mean, we're a developer. We would consider ourselves a merchant developer. But typically where we've started even this process is that we have a pool of people that have experience on the senior housing side as an owner, not necessarily just some, random off the street that wants to come in and buy it.
Hey, you want to try this?
Exactly. But really the key factor is the operator itself. Right. And that's why for us is having Hilltop Healthcare on board early on, that helps us to understand not only on the development side, but also the design and the construction, that we're delivering a product that's going to survive long term based on the demands and the strategy behind senior housing.
Perfect. Thank you.
When you were here for the presentation a couple months ago in front of the Planning Commission, Mr. Opatz talked about getting a comprehensive care license. Are you in a position where you can kind of explain that to the rest of the council?
I don't know that in detail what the idea is in that comprehensive license is. It gives you the ability really to manage care from very acute care to very intensive care, and that's why we start to talk about the independent living, the assisted living, and then the skilled nursing beds, which is a little bit higher level, a higher type of care. And so that will be one of the focuses will be for this, because the way I understand it, there's only a certain number of beds that are allowed within the state of Minnesota. And a lot of times what happens is those get traded between facilities. And so really Tom's focus will be is to secure some of those to bring those in as part of this facility.
And I think he also mentioned the part that was so intriguing for me was that type of licensure allows them to do kind of in-home health care.
Correct.
As well in
That's
this
correct.
community. So.
Yep, and so what that would do is and the idea behind this is, as part of the facilities, have that in-home health or in-home service that they could service this out of the facility to facilitate services in and around the community as well.
Interesting.
So
That intrigues me as well. Sorry, that just felt really good to say. Although everybody in land development, you guys all have like really good pipes. Like, hey, and what we're gonna do is there's 7-acre site. Does anyone have any other questions, comments?
Welcome to Carver.
Oh, I have a question yet.
Please.
What was your price range that you were looking at for the home prices for?
because they're a for rent type product.
Okay.
Let me go back.
1,000 to 6,100.
Yes. So that was what the initial idea was, and it really came from Tom's understanding and Hilltop Healthcare's understanding of the marketplace. But that will be something when we do the full-blown market study that will identify of what the existing rates are. And a little bit too is we were involved in the construction, not in the development of Auburn Meadows. And so some of that is also just understanding what some of the rates are in the other marketplace or the other facilities in and around the area. So.
For the market study, when you do that, is that something that's confidential and proprietary, or is that something that you would share?
That's something we would share. I mean, once we develop it, because again, if we find out that it's something that, hey, maybe it's only going to support 40 or it's only going to support 30, that's something that we would be very, collaborative with you and the staff to really develop and say, hey, this is why we're going to go the direction we are. We may find out that there may be a higher demand. And typically what you find in those market studies is that it could say, I'm just going to use it, could say, demand is for 100 units, but we would, and most developers would never build it to the full market study. But that's something that we would have to do as well as part of our financing package. So that's something that would be open to people as well.
And as well, the facility, whatever you're building, it's not going to be higher than 2 stories, correct?
No, our initial plan was
17.
based on this, just a quick study that we did based on the size of the property and a typical what they call a floor to area ratio in a property. We figured we could get between, I think what it was, 50 to 75,000 square feet, but that would be in 2 stories. So we'd have about a 30 to 35,000 square foot footprint.
Okay,
So
great.
I've asked around. You guys have a good reputation.
thank you. We that's as we say in the development and construction world, it is only good as the last job you did. So that's something we truly focus on.
All right. Any other questions, comments? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize staff to proceed with discussions with Shingleby Builders.
It's not easy to say.
Shingleby Builders
Shingleby Builders.
for the acquisition and redevelopment of 926th Street.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Are you planning on having this built by fall? Is that what I heard?
No, I mean, I don't know. It's no. Our goal would be is to get through the process to be able to start this fall, because then if we can get footings and foundation in October, it allows us to build over the winter, and we don't incur those winter conditions. If we get to that point, then it really becomes a discussion of what becomes financial feasible.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
good.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Mr. Merrick, 9.3, strategic plan. And I know that this is fascinating, but you don't have to stay, right? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. and
You're
Council.
welcome.
In this past February, the City Council and Department has participated in a strategic planning session facilitated by Richard Fersman with Hugh Life, and it was slightly different than past strategic and goal-setting sessions where I think maybe the 3 or 4 past years, it's been kind of the low-hanging fruit kind of action items that are kind of impacted by kind of big picture perspectives. And I think this session was more of a visioning session, getting at some issues that affect not only Carver today, but in the next 10, 15, 20 years and beyond. And so the overview section of this is we developed as a team 3 separate areas, one into opportunities, and you can see the corresponding pieces related to recreational venues and services and infrastructure. And if you look back at projects that the city's done in the past 5 years and going forward, and some of the most recent agenda items, you can tell, via Ironwood Park and 2017 construction projects and how we do water. All those are pieces that we look for opportunity and looking at promoting growth and investment. Yeah, thanks. Development, a community that has a variety of housing choices for all stages of life, and then a diverse and vibrant economy with a combination of unique shops, established businesses and industry. So kind of integration of our core downtown business district with some of the new opportunities that are going to present themselves along the 212 and Jonathan Carver Parkway corridor, and not having them be mutually exclusive, meaning that there'll be projects in the downtown that help those corridors, and there'll be projects along the corridors that'll help the downtown. There doesn't necessarily need to be a winner and a loser in that regard. And then finally, identity embraces its unique history and national heritage, and then as a community built on trust with value through partnerships and civic engagement. And I think one of the things, and the council's welcome to kind of chime in here, but one of the things that I at least noticed was this Carver being a small community, and as we grow, kind of this conversation of how much do we grow, and that a lot of folks move to Carver to enjoy that small town feel. But as we grow, what they view as the small town feel is changing, either slowly or quickly, depending upon their perspectives, and recognizing that as a piece to the discussion. And so in your packets, you'll see the final plan that was put together by Richard Fersman for your adoption. There's also some strategic directions related to staffing, communication, infrastructure, parks and amenities, partnerships, planning and interpersonal, economic and housing development. And so the next step would be to put together an action plan. That's really kind of the meat and potatoes behind all of this. Otherwise, a lot of this turns into, frankly, cliche that a lot of cities have. And so when you put that action plan together, that really guides where you're heading. The council did ask at a previous work session to get a proposal from Mr. Fersman to facilitate an action plan process. And so he has a $1,500 fee for a 3-hour session. In the past, city staff has put together those action plans, and we could certainly do that if that was the council's wishes. So happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I thought it was tremendous. I thought he was tremendous. I also believe that you can put those together. I think staff can put those together probably more applicably, if that's a word, than Richard, for exactly where we need to go and what we need to do. I think this is a really good game plan. I think it's a really good start. And I think that you and the department heads know exactly where to go with all of this, so I don't think we need to have them back. Personal opinion. Anyone else? What color sidewalks should we have? Whoa, hold on. Sorry. So do we need a motion to adopt the strategic plan?
That'd be great.
That'd be great. I'll make a motion to adopt the strategic plan for 2017-2022 for the city of Carver.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Monroe.
I have nothing.
Johnson.
We've had a planning commission meeting where the big thing was voting for the Shingabee proposal that we just approved or decided to move forward with. And then there was a Carver Business Commission meeting since we last met too, and that continues to have people show up on, and we have some pretty good discussions. Next.
Mark,
I have nothing.
Hank,
Got nothing?
Brent?
Just one
Sorry,
thing.
Mr. Merrick.
That's quite all right. One of the things I was going to mention during the work session, but I'll bring it up at the regular meeting. After the council took action on the City Hall preferred site, I followed up with the task force and wrote them an email kind of summarizing what had happened, kind of next steps, just inquiring as to whether the council wanted any additional follow-up with the task force moving forward.
Say that again?
So after the city council...
Followed up with the task force.
Yeah, after the city council chose the preferred site, I followed up with the task force via email, kind of thanking them for their service, letting them know that the council had chose the
Okay.
Village Hall site, just wanting to know if the council wanted any additional follow-up with
Got
that
it.
task force.
I can't think of any at this time.
I don't think it matters.
I can't either. I imagine as we get moving through the process, there'll be kind of more weekly updates that folks can opt into. And maybe we would reach out to them to let them know, indicate if they want to be part of that.
Part of the process you want?
No, like opt in for updates,
Oh.
or like any other.
We'll be giving the
construction or-
community updates for sure, so,
Okay.
I mean, I think the task force's job is done.
That's what I was just trying to...
Yes,
Okay.
it's my opinion.
It's done. That's it?
Cleanup day, May 13th. So we'll have a utility bill insert that should be arriving either today or tomorrow. That'll have the details.
Okay.
And Brian will get some WD-40 for that chair.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank God.
A second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn, and all in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you.